if shit does hit the fan?
I
Like,
mean,
if carnage does unfold and there's chaos in the world, what would Luke Belmar do?
I think the first thing that you need to do is develop skill sets that are transcendent. So your ability to sell, your ability to negotiate, your ability to network. The second thing is you need to be multinational. So you can't just be dependent on one citizenship. And I know for a lot of people listening that may not have a lot of money, it may seem far fetched. But if you only have one passport and that government says, okay, well, you can't leave the country, then you're kind of screwed.
Mm.
So it's good to have multiple passports. I've been able to build a decent portfolio of passports. And then the final thing is a network, right? You need a global network, an international network of people that understand different things that are taking place in other regions of the world. So I have certain escape plans and certain strategies and ecosystems that I'm building in different remote places of the world, just in case certain areas and certain civilizations become too controlled. Usually third world countries tend to be a good region. So people or ecosystems that are still really moving with cash, that don't have a lot of digitalization, tend to be good. So Indonesia is pretty decent. You look at Bali. Bali's still a pretty good place to operate. Argentina, now with the new presidency, is giving you access to a lot more opportunity, your ability to buy big plots of land. One of my goals is to build ranches around the world that are self-sustaining. So your own fresh water supply, your own animals, game, deer that are just roaming around, and building what I like to call high trust societies. High trust societies are small networks of people that trust each other that each have different functions inside of that community. And that community is self-sustaining in and of itself. So some people do the farming, some people do the plumbing, some people do the electricity, some people, and you kind of form these high trust societies that you can't really form in massive cities, whether it's Dubai, New York City, Los Angeles, because in these ecosystems, you're very much dependent off of the businesses that are making the ecosystem operate. And if these businesses go out of business or no longer functional, then you end up being in a really tough situation.
I thought about this the other day. I was like, okay, so we just experienced like a storm. Everything was flooded. Pretty much couldn't drive anywhere. Like I was stuck here. But obviously, there's worse places to be stuck. At least I can walk around. But there's still quite a lot of shops, cafes, restaurants that were closed because staff couldn't come in, operate, or even the electronics were messed up. But I was thinking, what if it's like a more severe case of this where the electricity goes out for days,
Wi-Fi goes out,
Wi-Fi goes out,
cell towers.
the food runs out. Well, I'm absolutely fucked.
You're fucked.
I don't even know what I would do.
And that's an issue. Like that's an issue. And people don't think about that. People think that society, when you look at any kingdom, when you look at any civilization, they've all gone extinct. Every single one of them. The Roman Empire didn't think that they were going to get nuked. They got destroyed. They lasted about 1,000 years. Then they got divided into a couple kingdoms, but they still got destroyed. You look at the Alexandria. You look at the Greek Empire.
It was even
Persian Empire.
Do you see the Eye of Africa?
I haven't seen it.
It's the Richard structure, and they believe that the city of Atlantis was there once upon a time, like 12,000, 13,000 years ago, maybe more. It was one of the most advanced civilizations that this planet has seen, but there was some sort of cataclysmic event. They believe it was like a flood, a huge flood that swept across Africa and completely wiped it out.
I mean, there's a lot of records that, whether it's different texts, different religions, different kind of scrolls or different history records that all point to a massive flood that wiped out society, not just once, but multiple times over. And just to assume that everything's always going to be okay is a fallacy. That's why I always say that the skeptic is the one that survives. The person that's always looking over the shoulder and is always alert is the person that ends up doing well. And you kind of have to be a little bit paranoid, because if you're not paranoid, then a bad situation could take place and you have no sort of rescue plan or B plan. That's why making money is an extremely important thing to do, because it gives you access to tools and resources and people that you wouldn't have otherwise. And the treatment that people with money, influence, and power have when shit hits the fan
they'll be looked after first.
is completely different than the average person that is stocking shelves and that is just utilized as an expenditure.
Well, that's why I'm all for space exploration. Like, I do think that it's important for our species to be interplanetary and not be stuck just to this one planet.
I mean,
Because
now
if
with
something,
this whole weather control thing, the time could come where you can basically cloud seed
Mm.
and create civilization on other places.
Have you heard of the is it the HARP program, which I think is, I don't know if that's associated with America, but apparently it's something to do with how they can alter the atmosphere to affect weather systems.
Oh,
But that's all
100%.
very secretive. Nobody really knows how
You can look
advanced
at
that is.
Bill Gates, who's a massive crook, and he's now pushing something to add haze into the atmosphere to start kind of covering the sun, so that it doesn't cause the planet to warm up. I'm like, okay, so this
Yeah,
guy's just playing God
There's
now.
going
It's
to be
kind of
no
fucking
side
crazy,
effects
bro.
of that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anybody who is in a very strong position of influence who's actually doing a good job? Like someone you admire who's like, okay, yeah, he's doing a good job. Like he's actually trying to make a positive difference to the world.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one because all you can go off of is perception, and perception is controlled, right? So whether you're an influencer, that's a small one or a big one, whatever content you put out ends up being how people perceive you. So what if the people that run the world understand how to control that narrative? Anybody that's in a government institution, I just automatically don't trust them, because I don't truly think that we need big government the way that it's being pushed on us. I don't believe in this source of controlled authority over mass amounts of people, and the ones that are like, oh, well, Luke's talking out of his ass, or Luke doesn't understand that you do need government. Well, you've never lived in a situation whereby you've actually had deep levels of freedom. And when I tell people, let's say you were a society that was in slavery, and let's say you're born in year 200 of that 400-year cycle of slavery, you have no concept of freedom. You have no concept whatsoever of what it means to be autonomous. Today, we look at the US dollar built on the fiat system, a massive way to control society by printing money out of thin air and getting people employed. That's why they're called human resources, right? Because you're just an expendable resource for building all these things that are pretty much propped off of debt and off of fiat. It's pretty much slavery, right? And yeah, certain people can get out of it. Certain people can, finesse their way to the top. And like I said, the internet kind of is giving people the opportunity to do that. But most people end up living lives of what I like to call quiet desperation. And they are pretty much slaves to their 9 to 5. They're slaves to the preconceived notions of how one should actually go about making money or building a business. And in my opinion, these are all mechanisms of control to subdue society and control society at a mass scale. Keep people broke. In the US, for example, everything's on credit and everything's on debt. Oh, you want to get a house? Okay, perfect. Get a mortgage. Mortgage is a loan. Oh, you want to get a car? Perfect. Here's a car payment. They sell iPhones on payment plans. Everything's on a payment plan. That's all debt. It's all propped up by something that's not real. What's a 30-year mortgage? Imagine getting a 30-year mortgage at the age of 60. What are you going to pay it off when you're 90? It's not real. It's bullshit. So in the 40s and the 50s, when people were working at factories before the dollar was hijacked by the Federal Reserve and removed off of the gold standard, you would work 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a factory, make your $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year, and in 2 years you would buy a house, you would buy a car. You wouldn't have to work 10 years in order to afford a place to live. And that all comes down to the fact that the money printers are the way to steal from people through inflation and through the debasement of currency, which is what we're seeing nowadays. Like I said, unless you understand monetary policy, unless you understand that finance is the new language of the elite, just like back in the day, Latin used to be the language that the church would utilize to control the peasants. Instead of teaching the peasants Latin, or in this case, the peasants nowadays finance, you would have the Pope or you would have the minister be the one that was the middleman between you and God. And that's why when you look at the US dollar, it says, "In God we trust." It's really funny because you're not trusting in your own ability to decipher what's taking place. You're going off of a middleman. If you look at the tax code, it's 4, 5, 6,000 pages long. Who has time to read that? Who has time to actually understand what's taking place, or if what we're being taxed is legitimate or fair or constitutional or even legal? They don't. So people nowadays are really much trusting off of big organizations, and anything that has an acronym as an organization, whether it starts with an F or whether it starts with a C, all these crazy ones that I'm not going to say just in case we end up being in a bad situation. You need to be very skeptical because you don't know who's behind it. And these centralized sources of authority, whether they start off legitimate, which they truly could, can end up being in a situation that they can get hijacked and compromised. Just like these big social media platforms, they get hijacked from the inside. If you look at Pavel's interview with Tucker Carlson the other day, he talks about how a big government agency, I think it was the FBI, when he went to set up his headquarters in San Francisco, they approached one of his developers to, inside of the Telegram code, to put back doors so that they could get spied on. But this all happened on different social media platforms. So imagine you have all these backdoors already set up ahead of time. You hijack developers, insert ghost code, and start managing mass surveillance at a level that hasn't been seen before. It was pretty much introduced in the United States in 2001 after 9/11. It's called the Patriot Act. And it's really such a funny name because they always make it sound super epic, but it's basically a massive surveillance program to control populations. It's very scary. So going back to your initial question, is there any big influencers or influential people at a political scale that I would trust? The answer is no. Because if you're playing in the swamp and you're playing the dirty game, it's going to be a hard one.
What do you think of Elon Musk?
Elon is an interesting character. I think he understands psychology and understands persuasion and understands human nature better than most. I think he's doing a lot of net positive things, but simultaneously, you have to be skeptical at somebody who's utilizing cobalt mines in the middle of Africa, right, in order to power Tesla batteries, and utilizing, children and teenagers and women to get this out of the ground. You also have to look at, for example, Tesla. Tesla is pretty much a surveillance vehicle at this point. It's powered by electricity, which could be turned off at any moment. In fact, in China right now, going back to China, if you have a poor social credit score, you can't charge your Tesla, right? Which is crazy. What happens when that gets introduced in the West and everybody has an electric vehicle? So they'll tell you on one
Do you
side,
think that's why they're pushing electric vehicles so much? Yeah.
because it's a mechanism of control. You have one kill switch, and you can basically turn off all sorts of travel. Think about it. Hey, regulation says you can't leave 5 kilometers from your house. New pandemic, new virus. Oh, well, you don't want to comply? Well, we're tracking through your car. Your car has Wi-Fi. You went 5 kilometers outside of your house. Turn off the car. Boom. And it doesn't even have to come down specifically to one individual like Elon, but this entire premise right now of biometric scans to access the internet is getting pretty dangerous. So I think there's also a net positive, but he really knows how to play people and play both sides of the aisle.
He's always a few steps ahead. He's good.
He's good. He's very good. And that's why he is where he is today.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't trust a lot of people in these high ranks. And that's probably why I haven't been invited to any of these crazy parties.
I like what he's doing, trying to get people on Mars, though. I think we should be pushing space exploration more. Like, all that kind of stuff is so fascinating.
It's fascinating.
Like, I love to know the origins of where we came from, humanity, the universe, things like that. Do you have any strong thoughts on that?
Bro, I'm just here today, right now. I spawned into this reality, this 3-dimensional realm. I don't know what the fuck is happening. Some people tell you that there's reptilians. Some people tell you that there's all sorts of shit. All I know is that there's something weird, right, taking place. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what exactly it is. All I know is that humanity is very much controlled at a mass scale. And it's definitely controlled by maybe a couple thousand people that really understand how the world really works. And they do it through banking. They do it through social media platforms, and they are being quite effective at it.